Hi everyone, welcome to Human Resource Management. Today we're going to be talking about what is the purpose of HRM and why it's important. So when you think of HR in an organization, a lot of people think, these are the people that do payroll. They send me my checks. Or these are the people that do interviews when I go to a new organization, when I'm trying to find a job. Or at your worst, you might think HRM is the party planning committee. But companies that think this and employees that think this are missing the big picture. They're not realizing that HR is an integral piece of what organizations do every day. In fact, let's look at quotes from some leaders of organizations who talk about the importance of HRM. Steve Wynn, human resources isn't a thing we do. It's the thing that runs our business. Again, Bill Gates, the key for us, number one, has always been hiring very smart people. And that is what HR does. Jim Collins, the best-selling author of Good to Great, said great vision without great people is irrelevant. In fact, let's listen to, real quickly, some thoughts from Jack Welch on HR. He was a very successful head of GE.
You know, HR is, without question, one of the number one and number two most important functions in a company. I happen to believe it's number one. Many others think finance is the key to success in a company. HR is the driving force behind what makes a winning team. We make the argument that the team that fields the best players wins. HR is involved in making sure we field the best players. That's their job. And their job is to sit in every meeting, be involved in every part of the business equation. They're not the health and happiness, picnics, benefits team. They're the development team, developing today's and tomorrow's leaders. And if you have an organization where HR is relegated to forms and benefits, you got the wrong game going. I like to use one analogy. If you were running a sports team, whether it be the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, would you like to hang out with the head of player personnel or the team accountant? Who would help you build the best team to field? Not the team accountant. Same thing's true in business. You get yourself a great HR person, preferably one with multi-skills in manufacturing perhaps before, or in sales, who happens to be a people person, who understands that the role of the HR leader is to be both pastor and parent. Pastor in keeping secrets, and parent in telling it straight. You get that person who loves to see people grow, and you've got yourself a winner.
Some of the quotes that I love from Jack Welch are, they're not the picnics and benefits team. HR is the driving force behind what makes a winning team. Their job is to be involved in every part of the business equation. These quotes really get at the importance of HRM. So what is HRM? Well, human resource management is the application of organizational behavior principles with the goal of improving attitudes and behaviors of employees. Now, this definition goes a little bit different than the definition in the book, which says systems that influence employee behavior, attitudes, and performance. I put in improving because that is what HRM should be. We're trying to make things better within an organization. We're not trying to just keep the status quo. So in this class, we're going to talk about how the analysis and design of work, HR planning, recruiting, selection, training and development, performance management, and compensation lead to company performance. Now, you might be thinking, why are we not talking about employee relations? It's important to have good relationships with your employees. Well, this part of HRM really deals with how organizations interact with unions to a great deal. And so we're going to skip that part for this class. Before we talk about the importance of HR, we need to talk about capital. So organizations utilize capital to accomplish their goals. Capital is goods or assets used in the production of other goods and services. In short, it's the stuff that helps you make money. It's like cash for investments, machinery, factories. An example might be the robots within a car manufacturing organization that help to build the cars. These things help the organization make more money and be more productive. So what is human capital? Human capital is the training, experience, judgment, intelligence, relationships, and insights of your employees that can add economic value to the organization. Well, why do I emphasize can? Well, that's because if HRM is done correctly, human capital can add value to the organization. But if it's done incorrectly, then it really doesn't add a whole lot. So we're going to talk about how HRM both can increase our usage of the right types of human capital. How do we get the right people? How do we make sure they're producing at a high level, as well as the behavior of human capital? How can we increase their motivation and effort so that we can increase organizational performance? So first we're going to ask, okay, HRM, well, does it matter? So our first question when we look at does HRM matter, we have to say, does it lead to a competitive advantage? A competitive advantage is something that an organization can sustain that helps it outperform other organizations that it competes with. So when I did an MBA, I started like 8 years ago. My MBA classmates, I remember the first day of class in strategic human resource management, they said, why are we wasting our time in here? Why are we not focusing on accounting, finance, marketing, things that really matter within organizations? Now let's fast forward to 2016, and this is another quote from one of my classmates. I wish I'd paid more attention to HRM. Most of my time is spent handling people issues. In fact, every head of every small business or people who work in the upper echelons of organizations tell me on a regular basis that almost all of their time is spent managing people. That's the importance of HRM. So, does HRM matter? Well, there's 3 ways we can assess this question: conceptual arguments, case studies, and quantitative analysis. We're going to quickly go through all 3. So for this first tactic, conceptual analysis. So in strategy, they have what's called the resource-based view of the firm. It says the value of resources depend on several factors. Now, resources can be financial, physical, interpersonal. Here we're talking about human capital. It depends on if they're rare, it increases the resource value, and if they're difficult to imitate, it also increases the resource value. For example, here's an example. Lithium, which is used in pretty much every battery that we have, like cell phone batteries, batteries that get recharged. Now, is it rare? Yes. Now, there are vast reserves of lithium, but you have to own the land on which that lithium resides. So it is a rare resource. Difficult to imitate. Another example would be something like if you have a patent on a specific way in which you get that lithium to make a better battery. That would be very difficult to imitate for other organizations because it's copy protected. So let's go back to people. Are good people rare? Yes. A lot of this depends on the economy. When the economy is good, good people are rare because they have a lot of other options. So organizations are competing for those limited, rare resources of good people. Are good people difficult to imitate? Yes, again, because of these following reasons. They create specialized knowledge about the job. You can't just plug and play people. After 3 or 4 years, you've built up a knowledge of who are the right people to contact within and outside of the organization. That's just one example. And then they create culture. You want to have a positive culture within the organization. And the people within the culture are the ones who create it. Also, they make numerous small decisions that not everybody will make the same way. So, again, according to our conceptual analysis, yes, HRM is important. Our second tactic, let's talk about a case study. To do this, we could examine companies that, 1, do well financially and see if they do a good job managing HRM, and we could examine companies that struggle and see if they do a poor job managing HRM. Let's watch a short video now about the Container Store.
Hello, welcome to the Container Store.
What is it about some stores that creates raving fans that swear by them? At the Container Store, there are now 49 of them across the country, co-founder and CEO Kip Tindall believes his success is due primarily to one thing.
We focus on the employee the most, not even the customer, the employee.
Wait a minute, did he say the employee, not the customer?
If you take better care of the employee than anybody else, they'll take better care of the customer than anybody else. And then wonderfully and ironically enough, the shareholder will be very happy too.
Tindall believes that by paying higher wages, $46,000 on average for salespeople, and offering health plans even to part-time employees, he can create a work environment that generates excitement.
You walk in the store and you can feel it. Everybody that's in the store loves to be there. The customers love to be there. The employees love to be there.
Awesome, thanks. Veteran employee Allison Copeland remembers when she first heard about the company's distinct culture.
And I'm thinking, really? Is this for real? And 15 years later, it's absolutely real, still true, and still so alive.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Newbie Greg Heft has only been with the company 6 months.
Container Store is nothing like any other retailer that I've ever worked for.
One big difference is the company's approach in worker hiring and training. Applicants are subjected to up to 9 interviews, and only 3% of them are hired. Once on board, they get about 260 hours of training. That's over 30 times the industry average. Tindall says the investment is worth it.
When you're selling empty boxes, you better have great people.
Of course, the Great Recession hit retailing especially hard, and the Container Store was not immune.
You can't go around calling yourself an employee first culture and then lay people off, so we didn't do that.
But benefits were cut.
Everybody was very happy to not get 401k for a couple of years, to freeze their salaries, because they knew they were literally saving their fellow workers' jobs. You know, team is a really beautiful human experience if it's done right.
And now, profits are up and the 401k match is back. But Tindall is critical of how other businesses have handled the recession and its aftermath.
On average, if you look at the top 50 companies in the United States, how are we doing?
C minus, you know.
C minus.
Tindall's peers have given him an A. This year, he was awarded the National Retail Federation's Gold Medal.
I think everybody's becoming a little bit more conscious in the way they do business. I think customers demand it. They vote with their pocketbook.
Tindall calls what he's doing conscious capitalism.
We're not just being nice. It's a successful profit strategy as well.
And if it's profitable, maybe the employee-focused culture won't be contained to the Container Store.
All right, so we've seen a lot of the importance that the Container Store places on their employees. Let's look at some of their products. They sell Tupperware type products. So does Walmart. The exact same product that I get at the Container Store, I can pretty much get at Walmart. But is the experience within the Container Store, or even the profit margins of the Container Store, the same as Walmart? No, they're not equal. I love Walmart. I'm cheap. I go to Walmart. Save money, live better. That is also my motto. But it is a very different experience because of the way that the Container Store sees HR. Another tactic, quantitative studies. So we can also look at companies who have been recognized for their HRM quality and then see if their practice creates a sustainable competitive advantage. So let's focus on Fortune every year puts out a list of the 100 best companies to work for. So these are the companies that, from the perspective of other organizations and the employees, do HR well. Here are some of Fortune's 100 best. We see Google, the Boston Consulting Group, Wegmans Food Markets, the Container Store is on the list, LL Bean, Nordstrom, and many others. So we have to ask ourselves, are the 100 best more profitable than similar companies in those industries? So a study found a matched firm for each of the 100 best. So matched firms were similar in size and industry, but had never made the list. For example, they took the store Piggly Wiggly, that's a grocery store in the South, where I'm from, in Georgia. It's okay, but the people there treat you a lot differently than they do at like a Wegmans market. And they compared the Piggly Wiggly to Wegmans, which is number 7 on the list. And then they found that when they compared these matched firms, the 100 best firms outperformed their matches by a significant margin over a 5-year period. Another example, in a study of HRM practices, executives in about 1,000 firms responded to questions about which HRM practices they use. And then the researchers collected data on turnover, sales, and stock price, like market capitalization. And they found that organizations that had 1 standard deviation improvement in HR practices led to 7% decrease in turnover, which is a massive cost for organization, which we're going to talk about later in this class, and $27,000 more in sales per employee. That's a lot. Also, an $18,000 improvement in market cap for employee. These numbers are huge, and they show that HRM matters within organizations for companies that do it right. Answer, yes. Yes, it matters. We wouldn't even have this class. We wouldn't be talking here today. Conceptual arguments, case studies, and everything else we're talking about here support the impact of good HRM on organizational performance, which we're talking about as a firm's competitive advantage. So, who does HRM? If you're not familiar with this guy, this is Toby from the office. This is the HR rep that the boss and many of the other employees pretty much hate. Well, who does HRM? You. If you are ever in charge of employees, you will perform many of these HR tasks yourself. Performance management, training, recruitment and selection. Now, HR has the primary responsibilities for these, but your efforts will supplement or even replace those of the HR department in many cases. Now, HRM has a changing role. Historically, it was often seen as less important than the other functions within the organization. In HR, they talked about it as HR didn't really have a seat at the table. It wasn't seen as strategically important as like marketing or finance, for example, or supply chain even. But in recent years, HRM is really changing. Organizations that get it are doing things differently. So let's watch a quick video that talks about HR as business partners. This is the CEO of Steelcase, which makes high-end office chairs and office products like cabinets and desks.
Human resources plays a very important role at Steelcase, far beyond the old definitions of what you might think of in terms of the function of human resources. So, of course, there's all the processes that have to be managed, and compensation has to be managed, and all that is still very important. But today, the human resource people are really partners in the business. And that means they have a seat at the table because they deserve a seat at the table. The human resource people could talk about the vision of the company, the strategy of the company, the future of the company with as much passion and detail as any executive running any part of this business. They're in those meetings, they're part of helping shape the strategies, and then they can see quicker than anybody else what's the implication of those strategies in terms of the kinds of capabilities we need to have in the organization. What's the implication of the strategies and how the culture needs to move forward. So the conversations we have with our human resource professionals are about things like cultural change, helping leaders learn how to drive change and manage change, how to build the kind of talent we need for the future of the organization in terms of the individuals who work here today, but also what are some of the skills we need to bring into the company because we'll need it for our future strategies. And if we didn't have HR at the table, I wouldn't be able to think about all those things. I need my HR professionals there anticipating those issues, anticipating those needs before it becomes apparent. The best human resource professionals bring their whole brain to work every day. So they don't come in and accept any kind of narrow role definition. They come in and they have curiosity. The curiosity about how we're winning business, curiosity about the new products we're developing, curiosity about new businesses we're moving into. And they take everything that they've been trained to do, plus everything they experience in the rest of their life, and they bring it to bear as we talk about things like culture. We talk about things like how to become a global company. We have an HR organization that has people that have worked all over the world, and I want them to bring all those experiences, all those interests to the table when we're having discussions about our future.
As you can see from this video, the old role saw it as a cost center. It's things like putting new employees through orientations, getting them the binder of the organization's rules. The new role sees them as a strategic partner. For example, developing an employee to select the right employees who will help the organization accomplish their strategic goals. That is the new role of HRM. In fact, they have chief human resource officers who sit in the same meetings as the CFO, the CTO, the COO with the CEO and report directly to the CEO instead of reporting through one of the other functions, which is how it used to be in many organizations. So to recap, HR can provide a competitive advantage. HR is not the party planning committee anymore. And importantly, decisions about HR are based on data, hard data, just like in marketing and finance. And companies that get it really integrate HR into the core aspects of their business. So next time, we're going to talk about job analysis, which really forms the basis of a lot of the other HR functions that we're going to talk about in the coming weeks.